Hello everyone, I'm Rupert van der Velde, and today I want to look at some rather controversial methods of enhancing and creating pictures in photography, and in particular street photography. Not just through the obvious use of software such as Photoshop, but also through the actual staging and setting up of scenes to create pictures that pose as the real thing. I recently conducted an online poll asking, is using the digital darkroom to enhance street photography pictures cheating or creative thinking? And the overwhelming consensus was that it was creative thinking and not cheating, which surprised me somewhat. I thought there would be some pushback about this, and perhaps a few more purists out there who would simply not condone the act of image manipulation. The poll was perhaps a little vague and the word enhance a little bit ambiguous, but it does show that many people think that it is acceptable to use software such as Photoshop to fix and enhance the images we capture on the street. In a recent news story, German artist Boris Eldagsen revealed that his winning entry in the Sony World Photography Awards was created using artificial intelligence. The picture depicted two women from different generations in black and white. Eldagsen, who studied photography and visual arts at the Art Academy of Mainz, said he entered the image to find out if the competition was ready for AI images, and that the world needed an open discussion about what we consider photography and what is not. Eldagsen, who turned down the award, went on to say that this was an historic moment in photography and wondered just how many people knew or suspected that the image was AI generated. But if we're asking this question now, shouldn't we also look back to examine what photographers have done in the past and continue to do over the years to manipulate and create images? We all know what software allows us to do today to make alterations to our images. The tools and filters allow us to make anything from subtle adjustments to an image to major alterations where either the image bears little resemblance to its original or is built up from a series of pictures taken over time and composited together. Danish photographer Peter Funch, who famously photographed the same people on the same street over a 9-year period for a project called 42nd and Vanderbilt, also produced a series of pictures called Babel Tales in 2006, which studied human behaviour, coincidence and repetition in a sort of fictionalised New York. The photographs are composites of many pictures taken of real people over several days. Once he felt he had captured enough, Funch then edited up to 10,000 images to make an initial selection and then choose a background and add the characters to the scene. So, in essence, the moments in these photographs never existed. Instead, they are a combination of several moments over time. But it is still street photography. He is using the street as a stage to exhibit the fascinating behaviour of the people who walk it every day. Before casting judgment on using software to create in this way, it's worth taking a moment to look back at a couple of examples from the days of the wet darkroom to see if what the great masters were doing is really any different to what is being done today. Let's take a look at an iconic image by the great Chinese photographer Fan Ho. This picture, titled Approaching Shadow, was taken in Hong Kong in 1954 and featured the photographer's cousin as the subject. She stands with her back to the wall, the palms of her hands flat against it. She gazes down in a moment of repose. This is a transient moment. Like her life, it will not last forever and it will fade away. The looming shadow dictates the outcome and darkness will arrive. It all sounds very dramatic, but perhaps the picture acts as a visual metaphor for our mortality and the brevity of our lives. However, I recently read in an article that the image itself doesn't tell the whole story. There was just one small problem. At the time that Fan Ho was shooting the picture, the shadow wasn't there. There was no looming darkness encroaching on the scene to help illustrate his point, and turn this from a sunny, relaxed, perhaps introspective moment into one with a quite different meaning. Fan Ho created the shadow in the darkroom using dodging and burning techniques to give the image the mood he desired. So the question here is this cheating or is this creative thinking? Is the manipulation of an image in this way a visual fib or perhaps the creative vision of an artist? And does it really matter? And if it does matter, should a line be drawn between what is acceptable as fakery in an image and what is a step too far? It's a big question and perhaps there are no easy answers. For me, even after learning that the shadow in Fan Ho's picture might have been created in the darkroom, it still remains a beautiful image. Whilst using a technique like this isn't really on the same scale as an artificially generated image, it represents a falsehood of a kind. It is a manipulation of reality. Something was added that wasn't really there. Another example comes in this picture of two toughs from the Hungarian-born photographer Brassai, best known for his depictions of Parisian nightlife during the 1930s. Here the artifice is in showing us that we have run into these guys as they have suddenly shown themselves. In fact, the original negative contained 5 men, but Brassai created the black wall on the right side of the image in the darkroom by blocking out that portion of the negative. But it clearly is manipulation done to enhance the impact of the image. This leads us to another idea when it comes to faking it, and that is the practice of actually setting up street scenes to get the picture you want. Why bother hanging around on street corners all day in the hope that you might encounter something fascinating, striking or dramatic, when you could take matters into your own hands and create it yourself? Find the perfect setting, position your characters, wait for or even create the perfect lighting, and bang, job done. It might seem like it's taking things a little bit too far, but it's well known that many of Brassai's Paris by night pictures were shot this way. He carefully prepared the scenes before instructing his subjects to pose as he wanted them to. It's also documented that Bill Brandt staged some of his images, described as photo illustrations, in his A Night in London series. And in this picture, it has been suggested that Cartier-Bresson asked his friend to whiz round the bend a few times on his bike until he got the shot he really wanted. But does it really matter if he did? The pictures of German photographer Mirko Martin are a fascinating mixture of staged and real street scenes. Set on the streets of Los Angeles, the photographs are Hollywood-style film sets, but that feature real life as it happens. Some of the characters are actors and some are not. Martin worked for 5 years on the project, shooting as a bystander from a distance, trying to keep as low-key as possible and not attracting attention to himself. The film set lighting and rigging are hidden from view, thus leaving us wondering what is staged and what is not, blurring the boundaries between fiction and reality. Lastly, let's consider the work of Canadian photographer Jeff Wall, who says he starts producing his pictures by not photographing. Instead, when he sees something interesting, he thinks about it for a while and then recreates it from scratch, finding locations and using actors. For this picture, called Mimic, he saw a white man pulling his eyelid back into a slant as he passed an Asian man on the street, but he didn't photograph them. Instead, he carried the moment into his head and recreated it at a later date. When I first saw this picture, I just assumed that it was a genuine street moment, that he was alert enough to capture it. It never occurred to me that it was a sort of fake. Jeff Wall is very open about the way he works and has never tried to pass his images off as real life, if you like. After thinking about it, I realised that regardless of what went into the making of the image, it is still a great street picture. But it's a great Jeff Wall street picture. I'm making no moral judgment here about any of these images because I just love looking at great street pictures. But what do you think? Like myself, I imagine most people use software such as Photoshop for making minor adjustments to contrast and for cropping purposes. I try to get as much right as I can in the camera when shooting, and I'm happy to spend the time on the street waiting for the right light if I think it will achieve the desired result. But how far would you go to create a street picture? And how much would you be prepared to manipulate an image in post-processing to create the look you really want? Thanks for watching. I'm looking forward to some debate in the comments to learn what you think. Please support the channel, give us a thumbs up, and please subscribe if you haven't. And do check out my book, Fine Art Street Photography, which is available from my website or from the link in the description to the video below. See you next time.